So hi, my name is Kimberly Archuleta and welcome to the Awakening series. Today I am so honored to have Sue Frederick on the show. She is a career intuitive coach. Sue Frederick's work has been featured in the New York Times, Real Simple, Complete Women, Woman's World, Yoga Journal, and Natural Health, along with the Denver Post, New York Metro, and the New Orleans Times, along with being invited to speak at multiple venues like the Omega Institute, the Rhinebeck, New York, and Loyola University in New Orleans. Sue combines a unique gift of power, intuition, and practical career know-how. She is also very well known for her amazing books, which I've ordered for my mom as well. Sue's best-selling book, I See Your Dream Job, A Career Intuitive, shows you just how to discover what you were put on this earth to do. It was published by St. Mary's Press, and it's really changed thousands of lives. She has multiple books, and we will get into each one of those books. I'm so excited about these books, by the way. So just to let you know, her recent book, I See Your Soulmate and Bridges to Heaven, and True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side have become instant Amazon bestsellers. So Sue, thank you so much for your time. You are such a wonderful soul. I'm so excited to have you on the series.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. So Sue, if you can give us a bit of insight on your journey, I would love to hear all about it.
So I've written about this in my books, but I was like many people in the audience. I was a very sensitive, intuitive kid. And I had dreams that came true down to the last detail, which completely freaked my family out when I was growing up in New Orleans. And I always sort of knew things that were beyond the physical world. And as many people also have experienced, that makes being in this physical world challenging because we're able to sense who people really are beyond what they say. And early on, I realized I had this ability to sort of see a great potential in people, who they came here to be. And that's what I would always see in them and focus on in them. And, you know, growing up in this world, you learn that when you see that great potential in people, most of the time, those people are not living up to that. And it was along the way of my life that I realized, wow, well then my gift is helping people remember their great potential, seeing their soul mission and who they really are, and using my intuition to help them with that. And I'm a master numerologist, so I also use that.
I love it. Wonderful. So when did you, as far as your gift itself, when did you start using it for the greater good? Was it 18, 19, or were you 7?
Well, no. I mean, I grew up in the 50s, long before there was any sort of consciousness about intuition, or even there was no such thing as a coach, And so my first gift that I was trying to align with was my writing. And I've written a lot of books, but even as a child, I knew that writing was my gift, because when I wrote, I could hear that inner voice, that divine wisdom that's also known as our intuition, and I could sort of channel that in and pour it onto the paper. And so I was growing up in Catholic school back then, and fortunately the Catholic nuns really loved my writing. They really encouraged me. I was the school poet in high school, and so I was encouraged to go to college to study writing, and I did, but then the very practical part of me that we're all very familiar with, the practical voice that diminishes our gift, the practical part said, oh, well, then you've got to be a journalist if you're going to make any money as a writer. And I spent 20 years writing for magazines and newspapers, always longing to write more from the spiritual perspective. And it wasn't until I hit a great reinvention point, a wake-up call, that I really said, wait a minute, I've got to be who I came here to be, and I've got to write the truth from my soul.
Oh, wow, that was beautiful. I can tell you are an author. It was so beautiful. So let's jump ahead a little bit. Can you tell us how the grief of your past has changed who you are today?
Yeah, grief is our greatest teacher, our greatest spiritual teacher, I believe. And I was broken open with grief in my 20s because I was a mountain climber, an outward bound instructor in Colorado, and I felt invincible. And my husband was also a mountain climber and a rock climber, and we were just young and healthy and climbing mountains and helping other people overcome their fears and climb mountains. And he had a few stomach problems. This was in the 70s. And all of a sudden, he was diagnosed with colon cancer and given 2 weeks to live. And actually, we did a number of conventional and alternative treatments in the 70s, and he lived for a year. But that whole process of going through that with him was my profound awakening. And then the loss of my husband when I was 30 brought me to a state of seeking truth, is the only way I can say it. All my friends were getting married and launching careers and having babies, and here I was feeling very separated from normal life by the grief I'd experienced. And also I had seen my husband's soul leave his body at the moment of death, and I'd experienced what researchers now call a shared death experience, which means that for a few weeks after he died, I was taken into the divine realms and really shown a different view of this life and really saw the humanity, the cords of love that connect us all. And it was so profound that I literally went on a spiritual seeking journey for many, many years. I've lived in an ashram. I'm a Hindu and Buddhist meditation teacher, and I'm almost finished with my studies to be a unity ministerial minister, a unity ordained minister. And, the connection is that our spiritual self, our divinity, has come here on purpose to accomplish something great, some great work we've brought to the world. And combining my spiritual understanding with my lifelong ability to sort of see that potential in people, that's what I do with my clients, and that's what I write and teach about now.
Oh, wow. And then that's how I found you, actually. I watched your YouTube videos, and they were so inspirational and spiritual. It truly touched me. And so I would watch I still do, your daily uploads. And I just am like, wow, this woman is amazing. And now learning more about your background, I see that you have given yourself the go-ahead and the okay to move forward in a spiritual manner rather than just going about it in the box, if you will.
Well, that's such a good point, because I think so many people believe that, okay, well, I've got to go to work and have this meaningless job, but it will pay the bills and I'll just get through it. But over here on the side, I'll have my true self and my true life, and I'll, believe in my spiritual values and principles. But going to work is a very different thing. It's separate from all of that. And our culture tells us that that's how we should do it, and that isn't who we are as divine beings who've come here on purpose. We dropped into this physical dense realm with the purpose of soul evolution, evolving ourselves to a higher consciousness and helping others evolve as well. So if we're just splitting ourselves apart like that, then we're not living our true life. We're not embracing who we really are and speaking our truth to the world. I mean, I ask my clients a lot of times, at work all day, do you show up as who you really are? Do you share your wisdom? Do you speak your spiritual truth? And, that most of the time they say, no, and that's why I'm so miserable, and I feel like I'm not living my true life. And I think that's the dilemma that has created the craziness in our world right now. And I even believe that these pandemic times are calling us to wake up to who we are again, to remember who we came here to be, to reinvent ourselves. You know, losing your job is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of your world. It's the beginning of you creating your true work, whatever that is for you on your path, and learning that you can make your living from that. You can be financially successful and abundant from your true work when you don't follow what the world tells you to do.
And that right there is a little scary. That is a little scary to go and follow your path. But like you said, you can be abundant. And when you do give yourself to multiple, scenarios, for example, work and your spirituality, whatever it may be, you are pulling your energy in multiple directions, and you can't be the best you. You just can't. I mean, how can we? We know that multitasking, it just doesn't work. I mean, it kind of can work, but not to the fullest potential is what you're saying.
It does work for a long time for people. And I believe we have these life cycles, these reinvention periods. So for example, in my 20s, I was an outward bound instructor, and that was what I needed to do at the time to develop some inner strength and inner courage. And then in my 30s, I was a journalist, and I was editor of magazines, and even did in my 40s, and I was learning things I needed to learn. And one of those really important lessons was I need to speak my spiritual wisdom truth. I can't pretend to be somebody I'm not. I can't pretend to be a corporate mucky muck. I can't pretend to care about the corporate world. I have to speak my truth and really embrace my wisdom of helping people, of speaking to them soul to soul, of seeing their potential, of helping them wake up, and of always using the idea of God consciousness in my life at every moment. And until you hit that point in your life, and that is often brought into your life through grief, whether it's a divorce or a breakup, or you lose someone you love, something wakes you up, something nudges you, and that means it's time for you to do that reinvention.
Ooh, that was good. That is so good. Wow. Okay. So going back to your husband, who I'm so sorry you lost at such a young age, would you say he's one of your greatest spiritual teachers?
Yeah. And it was, my husband, Paul Frederick, still keep his name. I'm Sue Frederick, after all these years. When he died in 1979, I was so devastated because I'd never been loved anyone the way Paul loved me. So I was so bereft in my grief, and he kept coming back to show me he was okay, to show me what the divine realms were all about, to push me to grow and evolve. And even to this day, often come back in dreams and has things to tell me about my work. And, he's such an enlightened soul. And he definitely drops into my life when he's needing to tell me I need to do something differently, Right after him, my best girlfriend from my entire life, Chrissy, died from leukemia. And I would say it was the double whammy. I was only 30. And suddenly I had literally lost the two most important people in my life. The two most highly evolved people in my life had died these painful, kind of tragic young deaths, and they had suffered a lot. And as anybody will tell you, watching your loved ones suffer, you need to suddenly understand what life is about. You need to know, why is there suffering? Why are people why do humans go through this? What is the point of all this? And that is called launching on your spiritual journey, because that's where the answers are to that. So I would say all my loved ones who crossed over way too young, way too early, all were my greatest and still are my greatest teachers.
So that makes sense, because grief-stricken people really are different. They're not who they once were. They are truly different, which means that their whole life has changed.
That's why I love talking to grieving people or people who've been through loss, and I wrote my book, Bridges to Heaven, True Stories of Loved Ones on the Other Side, for these people who have experienced this kind of loss that breaks them open to where ordinary life never feels okay to them. They are looking for an extraordinary life, a different viewpoint, a divine wisdom viewpoint. And they are the people that you have those soul-to-soul conversations with, because what grief does, spiritually, what it does is it strips our ego away. It strips our personality away. Suddenly, we are just our beautiful soul's essence, and we no longer want to play the games. We want to be real and authentic and live true to who we really are. That is the gift of grief for everyone.
I love that. That is so beautiful. And it's so nice to hear it that way, because so many people do not know which way to go once things happen. And like you said, one person passes and then another person passes. Oh my gosh. Then really, what happens? Like, what happens to you? You need guidance. I think every single person needs a coach. And in the grieving stages, we all don't exactly know how to go about it. So your book is just a fantastic insight on how, what, who, I mean, everything in between. Can you tell us more about it, actually, if you don't mind?
Yeah. Well, what I learned in grief is that our departed loved ones do want to see us do well. They get so upset when they're on the other side and they're evolving and learning in the divine realms and connecting to the God consciousness of love that lives there. And they check in with us down here and we haven't gotten out of bed for 2 weeks, all the things that grief does to us. And, I have nothing wrong with grieving. You've got to feel what you've got to feel. You got to feel it to heal it. But there reaches a point where our departed loved ones want us to carry on with our lives, and they will come back and they will say, like, I do workshops, and one of my favorite stories was a mom telling about the terrible loss of her child. And I've worked with many grieving parents, and I think there's no greater loss than losing a child. And she was telling me, since her son had died, she had no reason to live, no reason to get out of bed. And that she had basically been in her bedroom for 3 months when she came to my workshop. And so I took her with the whole class through an exercise that I write about in my book, Bridges to Heaven, where we meditated, we quieted the mind, we opened the heart, and we sent love to our departed, because that's how you connect. You've got to raise your vibration by sending love to them, not grief or sadness or fear, and just sending pure love to our departed. And that raises our vibration, and then they can connect. And then I had my attendees pull out paper and pen and start asking their departed questions like, why did you have to leave me? What am I supposed to be doing now? And I teach them to just start writing very quickly, not from the logic mind, to just write without editing. Just let that pure divine wisdom from the departed come through you and write. And I keep guiding them with different prompts. And I tell you, then we share what we've written. And this mom said, and this was all in her son's voice, she totally recognized it as his words and not hers. And it said, "Mom, get out of bed." And he told her some very specific things about what he wanted her to be doing and what he was disappointed in with her. And as she read it all to the group, crying and crying, it was like she said, "Well, I've got my marching orders now. I realize that he is watching me. I realize he is still connected to me, and I need to get up and carry on."
That was amazing. I love it. I love it. I honestly cannot wait for my mother, who lost her son, my brother, to read this beautiful book. I am so excited. And when she does, I'll then read it. It's just really important because she didn't have anywhere to go. There were different groups. Right. She was just nervous. She's such a shy woman to go to these groups. But
that's Kimberly, that's what I want to tell all grieving people is, You can do this yourself. You don't need to go see a medium. You don't need to go see me. You don't need to do anything except sit down, do some meditation. And I teach meditation in my books and my classes. You quiet the mind, you open the heart, you pull out your pen and paper, you send love to your departed, you picture a happy memory you've had with them. And as you do that, it shifts the vibration, helps them connect. And then you pick up your pen and you start writing, and you will get answers. You will get connection. And that will be the thing that shows you that life goes on beyond the physical and that your departed wants you to be happy.
Wow, that's profound. That's amazing. I am actually going to try it myself. Thank you for that. Truly, thank you. If you wouldn't mind, if we change subjects just a tad, can you give us a little bit of insight on your daily spiritual routine?
Yeah. Well, I've dabbled in every path, and I believe that every path connects us to God. And so I have a connection from all these different paths that I use. But my first go-to in the morning is a Hindu type meditation of quieting the mind. I use a mala. In fact, I have one around here somewhere I could grab in a minute. It's a Buddhist prayer bead, and I say a mantra on every bead, and I close my eyes and I sit and do that for 20 to 30 minutes. And your goal is not to think, not to visualize, not to get guidance, simply to quiet mind. And that's what the Buddhists and the Hindus figured out thousands of years ago, is that we have to quiet that left brain logic mind. They called it the monkey mind, which is so perfect. We have to quiet that in order to get in touch with our soul, our inner wisdom, our loving, heartfelt guidance. That the only thing that ever blocks that from us is our left brain logic mind that's filled with fear and worry. You got to get up, you got to do this, you're not good enough, who do you think you are? That all comes from the monkey mind. So our first act of the day should be quieting that through meditation, so that we can hear the voice of the soul. And the soul is saying, hey, you're a powerful divine being who came here on purpose, like everyone, to evolve and help others like everyone did. Quit listening to your crazy monkey mind, your ego, your fear, your self-doubt. Get over it. Stand up and do the work you came here to do, helping others, evolving your soul, bringing your gift to the world. And when we meditate, we can hear that voice. We can trust that voice. We can use that voice to guide us. So that's my daily go-to. I also use Unity. I'm becoming a Unity minister. They have gorgeous affirmative prayer techniques. And for example, little helpful tricks like denials and affirmations. I'll say, I deny this crazy world and this pandemic any power over me to affect my happiness, my well-being, and my health. And then I'll say, and I affirm that I am a powerful divine being with a gift to share, and that all is unfolding as it's supposed to for highest good. And I'll just work with those kinds of affirmative prayer things. And then I'm in school, so I always have papers to write about metaphysical principles, which I love. And so then when I work with a client, I meditate again before I call them for the session, and I meditate on their path, and I receive guidance for them. So I'm so blessed because my whole day is about spiritual practice, about meditating on clients, about, working with metaphysical ideas. But, I didn't start out this way. I had to go through a reinvention, as we all do.
That's amazing. I love that routine. It's so beautiful. And the affirmations, can you explain why we need to hear those?
Yeah.
I think people understand affirmations, but maybe not really the reason why we do it.
Right, right. Well, again, it has to do with the crazy monkey mind, the fear-based thinking. That is part of being human. Everybody has it, so it's nothing to be, blameful with ourselves about. But when we realize that what we're carrying through our day is a whole lot of negative thinking, fear, I call it our pitiful selves acting up, then we also know that this world is an energetic exchange. We are in an energy world down here. So if I'm not bringing my best, most powerful self to the world, I am not going to have my best, most powerful life. And I'm not going to be bringing to myself all the opportunities I came to experience, because my negative energy will block me from my grace, from my divine self, from my intuition. So those denials and affirmations are sort of like energetic cleansers, They're getting me back in alignment with my positive, what I call our brilliant selves, and they're deleting my negativity. So if you do meditation to quiet the mind, and then you do some affirmative prayer like that, you are just like shiny and new. So that's my main practice.
That's beautiful. Going on to another practice of yours, you have so many gifts. If you can enlighten us about your numerology practice. We spoke before, and I was so enamored by what you said, and it resonated with me so much that I just can't wait for the audience to hear.
Yeah, just to remind you, you're the old soul in the room, beautiful Kimberly, on that old soul 9 path. So yes, when I was 29 and my husband had cancer and the world as I knew it was coming apart, the greatest gift of all of that was that a friend sent me a gift of doing a session with a numerologist. And I believe that numerologist was and is one of my greatest spiritual teachers in this lifetime, because she went so far beyond the numbers. She really talked to me about my soul journey and, what I had come here to do, and what my soul agreement was with Paul, and why we had agreed to go through this. And it was such a deep and profound awareness that I knew in my heart it was true. And I knew that these numbers were like a gateway to understanding what this universe is about. And I was 29 and now I'm turning 69. So that was 40 years ago. And I have literally studied the numbers and worked with them and written about them ever since. Now, what I will say is my numerology is different from most of the books you'll read. My numerology comes with a spiritual viewpoint, that the numbers are the gateway to understanding our journeys. They are not God. In other words, people get hung up in the numbers, like, well, if I'm seeing the number 4 everywhere, what does that mean? Your soul is in charge here. You are just putting up signposts to help yourself remember things. There is nothing greater in this world than your soul and your soul's mission. So the numbers are just a tool that we use, as well as astrology. And that when we look at it that way, then we realize, it's a tool to help us evolve and understand our lives.
I love how you said it's a tool to help us remember who we really are. I mean, wow. Because we don't really think, we're just wondering, oh, I do see 9 all the time. I do see 1 all the time. I wonder. But to go in it a little deeper and then a little deeper, it's us reminding ourselves of, and then if you look at the signs, like you said, like whatever sign it may be, there's so many on a daily basis. So that is so awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. It really makes sense. I would love to talk a little bit more about your amazing books. If you can possibly go into each one of them, I'm so excited. So, yay.
So my first, I had written 2 before this one, but this was really the one that hit, the big consciousness of the world. It was in the New York Times, et cetera. I See Your Dream Job. Because what that book was doing was helping people understand how to use the numbers to understand their path and how to access their own intuition, so that anyone who read that book or still who reads that book and is going through a question of who they are and what their career is and why their life is falling apart or why their career feels meaningless, there's a process in this book that anyone can follow that is going to help them figure that out. They're going to be able to understand, wow, my soul's mission is on the, as yours, Kimberly, that 9 path of the old soul. So all of my lessons are about teaching me compassion. All of my lessons are about teaching me bringing my wisdom to the world and not trying to fit in and be conventional. All of my lessons are about doing meaningful humanitarian work in the world. And once you understand that, and then you also understand the numbers explain our 9-year reinvention periods, and I outline that in all my books, and that helps people so much because we all hit these ending years that are called a 9-year in numerology, where suddenly maybe our career worked for us for a long time and suddenly it's all stripped away. And, without understanding the numbers, we can think, oh my God, my life will never be good again. I'll never be happy. I'll never have meaningful work. I'll never love anybody, whatever your story is that you're telling yourself. But when you look at it through the cycles of numbers, you can go, oh, I'm at a reinvention point. My only question should be, what do I need to focus on next in order to move forward? And how can I release whatever has been weighing me down and holding me back from being my greatest self? So I explain all of that in my book, I See Your Dream Job. And also, we're all intuitive. I teach in all my books how we can all access that intuition, because it's all about quieting the left brain monkey mind and trusting that inner wisdom, that heartfelt knowledge that comes through to us. So in my next book, I See Your Soulmate, I'm helping people understand, okay, so you're beginning to understand who you are and what you've come here to do. But what about all these relationships in your life that are either breaking your heart or driving you crazy? How can you understand those relationships? And I teach people how to understand your soul agreement with someone else. And that is so helpful, because whether it's your mother who's driving you crazy or your child or your spouse or somebody who just broke your heart, once you can look at, our soul agreement together was to break each other open for the purposes of spiritual growth. Wow, now I can step back and get out of my blame and my self-doubt and my personal hurt story, and I can begin to see it as, wow, that person who broke my heart was one of my greatest teachers, because they are pushing me to grow and evolve. So I can let go of all my negative stuff about that. And that's what understanding the soul agreement does for us. And especially even when we're grieving, we can understand the soul agreement that we made with that person who left us for the divine realms. And my soul agreement with Paul, my first husband, was to expand and change and grow. Wow. It definitely was not about living happily ever after together. And he pushed me on my journey of doing exactly that. So that's what my soulmate book is about. And then my grief book, like we've talked about, Bridges to Heaven, 2 stories of loved ones on the other side, is to help anyone who's grieving to have their own divine connection to their departed loved one so that they can heal and move forward.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get them. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for writing them. And the inspiration, whatever inspiration you had, which is from many people, from many things that you've done, I'm so thankful that you chose this path. Sue, seriously.
That's really sweet.
So much. I cannot wait to read them. So as far as insight about the career intuitive coaching training, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I've been training coaches for more than 10 years, and I teach people to access their own intuition and be able to help another person with the use of intuition and numbers, just the way I do. And I've trained hundreds of intuitive coaches in this way. And I also bring a lot of spiritual wisdom into it because that's me and that's how I work with life. So my coaches take my training, and now it's available in a self-guided program on my website. So you can go and do it on your own time. Anytime, you have time, you don't have to show up at a certain time for class. It's all in an online self-guided program. And I really encourage people to do it even if they're not sure that they want to be a coach, because it really inspires their own personal growth so much and helps them own their confidence of who they are. And then when they're ready, they can launch a business, a coaching practice, and they can really use this as how they work with people. And many people also who are already coaches, already life coaches or something, they'll come and take my training because they are already sensing that there's a deeper way to work with people and help people, and their life coach training didn't really address that. So when they take my training, now suddenly they're talking about soul missions and soul agreements, and it's really helping their clients much deeper.
That's amazing. So when people are ready for that, definitely go to your site. I didn't know it was online. I thought I had no clue about that. So that really is helpful for people that are doing multiple jobs or in the midst of having 7 kids, 2 kids, 1 child is enough, right? So doing it on their own is just so nice. I mean, quiet time at night. So that's awesome to hear. Very cool. Do you feel one day in our journey as souls awakening, and I think possibly more souls, as you mentioned earlier, are possibly awakening a little bit more these days, maybe due to technology and other things, but do you feel one day we will all understand that we are truly divine beings?
Oh, yes, and I really believe that this is the tipping point. The crazier the world looks in the physical world, the more you can't even watch the news because it seems the world has gone insane. If you think of this as a great soul journey for all of us, that's all this physical world is. When things fall apart is when we wake up to who we are. So we had this great run for, decades where everybody had a lot of money, at least in this country, maybe not elsewhere. And people were just comforting themselves with the idea that they were in control, that their ego was the boss and doing just fine. And so unless they had a personal wake-up call, they were kind of really not looking for a deeper purpose for remembering who they were. But now, the great news about these times is that even the people who've been very wealthy and sort of sheltered from change, sheltered from growth, they are now having to wake up, because whether it's financial insecurity suddenly happening in the world or it's the virus that everyone's having to deal with, we are all having to wake up, go deeper, and really start remembering our soul's essence, because there's no other way to get through hard times than by getting back in touch with your divinity, with who you are, with your soul's heartfelt wisdom.
Very well said. That is amazing. And I see a lot of people doing that these days without all the distractions. So that is such a good way to put it. So Sue, what is next for you? You have these amazing books out. What are you going to do next?
Well, I'm so excited because by next year, I am an ordained Unity minister, and I don't think I'll ever be running a church because I think I'd probably be bad at that, actually. I'm not a very good CEO, and that's kind of what you got to be to run a church. But I'm a great speaker. I'm a great writer. I'm a great coach and helper. And so what I want to do is just continue writing more books. And my newest book that I'm working on is called When All Else is Stripped Away. And the subtitle is Waking Up from the Dark Night of the Soul. And it's really about this inner spiritual journey of waking up for all of us. And what I love is that in the book and in my work with people, I can bring in, and here's what the Buddhists say about this, and here's what the Hindus say, and here's what the Christians say, and oh, and this is what unity says, and this is what metaphysics says. And I can really bring that bigger view of who we are as spiritual beings here, and what the essence of God is as a loving consciousness within all of us that runs this beautiful universe.
I cannot wait to read this. And the dark night of the soul, that is like shadow work. I mean, what is that exactly, if you wouldn't mind giving us some insight on that?
It's that moment when, perhaps when your brother died, or whenever we've hit a wake-up call where we go, I don't want to be here anymore. And everything I've known about myself no longer feels true. And that kind of point hits people at different times in their life. And often it hits you more than once. And that's the beauty of the dark night of the soul, because when in that moment, you're going to say, wait a minute, who am I really? Why am I here? What is this world about? And those are the great questions. Those are the spiritual questions that begin to make you look for the answers that resonate as true. And the way we move through the dark night of the soul is by looking beyond the physical world for our meaning and our purpose and our answers. And that is the most beautiful awakening that we ever have.
I love that you said beautiful, because grief is hard and that moment is hard. But like you said, it is an awakening, and we choose to figure out what it is that we are doing. And that is beautiful. That is the most beautiful thing. So our soul evolving is so beautiful. That is a good way to look at it. Thank you.
What's so beautiful about what you just said is, in that moment of grief, our heart is broken open. And what that really is about is learning to love ceaselessly, to feel compassion and love for everyone. Because when your departed loved one is gone, you can suddenly love and forgive and have compassion in ways that you may not have ever been able to have before, because now you understand the deeper meaning of life. It's not about the physical, it's about who we are as divine beings who came here on purpose. And so I can forgive that person who did such and such, because I now realize that they're a soul on a journey of evolution, just like me. And grief teaches me to love more deeply and more compassionately than ever. And that's the gift of grief.
I feel you on everything you just said. Right after my brother passed away, I literally, when I felt a bit better, I literally text message called so many people, even people I wasn't too happy with, and said, I just want you to know how much I love you, and I'm very thankful for you. And like that just brought down all the walls, and like just, everything just was, taken off my shoulders, because I was able to go in deeper within myself, let all these like dumb little things go, and just let everybody know that I was just so thankful that they were in my life. And I did do that. I mean, I called so many people.
Isn't that beautiful? That's the gift of grief. That's the gift to realize it's not about our ego stories here. It's not about who pissed us off and who didn't. That's all of our ego story. And grief helps us see beyond that. Like the wisest people I know here on earth are the people who've had great loss in their life, because they now understand what's essential. And what is that great line from The Little Prince? What is essential is invisible to the eye. Because what is essential is always about the heart.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. That's so true and so wonderful. Sue, I want everybody to get your books. I want to know where we can find them, where you are. Tell us where we can find you.
So my website is SueFrederick.com. And you can even just Google Sue Frederick and you'll find me. And on my website, you'll see all my books. I have more books than I even talked about today. So you'll see all of them. And you can click through to Amazon. They all link to Amazon. So you can buy my books on Amazon. And but also you can sign up for a phone session with me so that I can help you understand your path, your soul mission, the numbers that are here to help you understand your journey and how to move forward through whatever reinvention point or personal year cycle that you might be in. And so you'll learn all about those sessions when you go to my website. And I'm really grateful for every client. I've been working with clients now for 20 years. So I love helping people move forward in their journey. And if you can't do a session with me, then you can get one of my books. They're all pretty cheap on Amazon, and it will get you started on your journey.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. If you wouldn't mind giving us one last insight to take home with.
You are all powerful divine beings who came here on purpose, and your greatest gift here is your loving, compassionate heart. Please trust that wisdom inside of you and listen to it and allow yourself to move past the crazy monkey mind, the fear, the ego-based thinking, because you are a powerful divine being who's completely perfect as you are and who's still got a beautiful gift inside of you to share with the world. And so it is.
That is so beautiful. Sue, you are phenomenal. Talk about brilliant minds. I am so honored, so thankful for your time. You are beyond wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for this moment.
It's been a blessing to be with you, sweetheart. Many, many blessings.
Many blessings to you too. Thank you.